Apple announced two brand new iPad models yesterday. Updated versions of the 11-inch and 12.9-inch iPad Pros, and an all-new 10th generation base model. As someone who currently or wants to make music using an iOS device, should you care? The iPad Pro first then. Back in April 2021, when Apple introduced the M1 iPad Pro model and revealed that they would be powered by Apple's then still new M1 chip, people were gobsmacked. This was a massive statement of intent from Apple that they were committed to providing pros with enough power to run professional-grade apps on their iPad. It was a proper game changer. The latest generation iPad Pros, they're not quite as exciting. The big headline feature, of course, is the introduction of Apple's latest and greatest chipset, the M2. The M2 chipset boasts a larger 8-core CPU that's 15% faster than the M1, along with a 10-core GPU with a 35% uptick in graphical performance. The new model also supports Wi-Fi 6E and has improved integration with the Apple Pencil as well. The only feature out of all of that that's going to affect iPad musicians is the inclusion of the M2 processor. Now, it's really easy to get lost in the weeds with Apple's excellent marketing and deliberately vague graphs, so here's the bottom line. If you have an M1 iPad Pro, or even an M1 iPad Air, or even a 2020 iPad Pro, you shouldn't be upgrading to this new model. When it comes to music production, it is nigh on impossible to hit the performance ceiling on any iPad Pro model from the last 2 or 3 years. That extra 15% in performance that the M2 provides is pretty much meaningless. If you're coming from an older iPad model or want to upgrade from a base model, then yes, this is the best iPad experience that money can buy, and you'll definitely notice a difference in performance. Depending on where you are in the world though, these new iPad Pros are even more expensive than the previous models. In the UK, for example, the 128GB 11-inch iPad Pro costs £899, up from £749 from the previous model. And the 12.9-inch Pro starts at an eye-watering £1,249, up from £999 for the previous model. That's a big old chunk of change, and given that Black Friday sales are right around the corner, and retailers will be looking to clear their stock of the older M1 iPad Pro models, it might be wise to hold off for a bit and see if you can get a cheeky wee deal on an M1 iPad Pro. Alongside updated iPad Pros, Apple also announced a completely redesigned base model iPad. And it's a bit weird, really. This is, for all intents and purposes, a slightly worse version of the 2020 iPad Air. It has a USB-C port, 10.9-inch edge-to-edge screen, and Touch ID has moved to the power button on top. It's even powered by the same chip as the 2020 iPad Air, the A14 Bionic. This new iPad does not feature a laminated screen though, so there's still that wee visible gap between the glass and the display underneath. The iPad 10 sets itself apart from every other Apple tablet by having its front-facing camera located on the long edge as opposed to the short edge of the screen. This new model also has a few quirks when it comes to Apple Pencil integration. It still uses the first-gen Pencil, which you now need an adapter to charge. It also has a unique trackpad and function key-equipped folio keyboard case that looks rather nice. So on the face of it, this looks like a decent bit of kit for iPad music-making virgins. The inclusion of a USB-C port means that you'll no longer be tied to Apple's confusing dongle-based connectivity workflow nightmare, and the processor is powerful enough that you'll be able to run most music production apps with ease. Where this iPad falls down, in my opinion, is price to performance. Again, Apple have seen fit to adjust the price of this new iPad based on your geographical location. The 64GB storage option costs £500 here in the UK and goes up to £679 for the 256GB storage option. At that point, you'd be better off just getting an M1 iPad Air, or even better, a refurbished 2020 iPad Air, which this new iPad basically is, albeit with a slightly worse screen. Yeah, so this is what Apple's current iPad lineup looks like. Note that they're keeping last year's 9th generation iPad around as well. If you're buying new, the iPad Air is still probably your best bet when it comes to price to performance. If you're happy buying refurbished or can wait for a sale, the outgoing M1 iPad Pro models are going to be your best premium option, while the 2020 iPad Air is still an absolute beast, especially if you can get it for a good price. Let me know your thoughts on these new iPad models down in the comments, and if you could give that like button a little slap on the way past, I'd really appreciate it. And watch this video next for more tasty iPad music making goodness.